Should you play Touhou Luna Nights? If you like interconnected maps and action-oriented gameplay, then definitely give this game a try. It's available on Xbox consoles, PC, and the Nintendo Switch. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the key points that I found during my playthrough of Touhou Luna Nights that I thought that would help you in your decision-making process. So let's go ahead and get to those points right now. Point number 1, the story. You are a maid and you've been trapped into another realm, a made-up realm, a fictional world, and your goal is to figure out who trapped you there and why you are there. Now, I don't really understand everything else other than that. This is based on the Touhou project universe. I had to do a little bit of research, not too much, because that's not what this video is about. But it is, know that this game is set into this universe with all these different characters, and we're just kind of jumping in along for the ride. So for a new player like me who's not used to this universe, as a newbie to the Touhou project, I jumped into this just wanting to experience a certain kind of gameplay, which it delivered, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But I don't think you really need to know all these characters to really enjoy the game. I mean, if you're looking for a story, a really grasping, like a compelling story, I should say, then I don't know if you're gonna find that here. But if you're looking for some awesome gameplay, it does deliver on that front. So again, story, you're a maid, you're going around, you're kicking butt. You need to find who put you here and get out of this crazy, wacky world. And point number 2, speaking about gameplay, this game rocks in that category. It's very smooth, it's action-oriented. It's a combination of the Metroid and Castlevania type of games where you're exploring an interconnected map. You're finding new abilities that allows you to open up new areas and you rinse and repeat. So that's what you're pretty much going to be doing the bulk of this game. The game does not overstay its welcome, of course. It's about 4 or 5 hours long. You can get through this in an afternoon, on a weekend, whenever you have free time, or if you're like me, I split it up over the course of a week, like Monday through Friday, got it done like an hour each night, pretty much. But with all that digressions aside, I should say that it is more like Castlevania than it is Metroid. It pretty much feels like the Castlevania games from like PlayStation, like Simply the Night, if you are familiar with that. If not, just know that you're going around room to room, killing enemies, and it's, you know, kind of fast-paced. It's even more fast-paced than those games that I mentioned, the Castlevanias and the Metroids, and you're going around and you have some unique mechanics that I really want to touch upon. So at first when I started playing this, I didn't really realize how limited my attacks are, or how limited they seem to be. Because your attacks are tied to a meter at the top of the screen. They call it MP, basically like your magic points, right? And you can only do so many attacks. You're throwing shurikens, like throwing stars, and once your meter goes down, it depletes. You have to wait for it to replenish. But there's a system in place to solve that. You have these unique time-stopping abilities, and you also have a clock at the top of the screen showing you how many seconds you can stop time. Now, once you stop time at the press of a button, everything will pretty much freeze. And then you have the ability to use your stop time as points for your attacks. That is something that I figured out and I went, wow, that's the breakthrough moment. But at first it felt limited. I'm like, oh, I can only attack X amount of times depending on my bar. But you're supposed to utilize a couple of these game mechanics, stopping the time, utilizing your attacks while time is stopped. It takes up your other gauge, and then unstop time, your attacks will go, and then you like kind of rinse and repeat. You find kind of unique ways in order to do attacks based off of your multiple gauges. And of course, as the game progresses, you have the ability to find power-ups and to upgrade these gauges, your health points, your magic points, your time gauge. And it's really, really cool. And as we get nearer to, I guess, harder parts on the map, you'll find places where the time mechanics are really used to their full potential. Because when you stop time, usually enemies stay in place. But later on in the game, you're going to find enemies. You're going to find enemies and stage hazards that keep on moving even if the time has stopped. So you're really going to have to work on, how do I do this using my limited time, knowing that my time depletes as I move or do actions. How do I get through this part of the stage? It's pretty inventive and it's really cool. I enjoyed this entire time mechanic. I enjoyed having to juggle my different gauges in order to get through stages, to fight bosses, and so forth. And point number 3, I just want to talk about the overall flow and kind of miscellaneous things that maybe I didn't talk about up until this point. The visuals are modern day pixel art, and I know that can go either way. If you are tired or if you don't like this kind of visual aesthetic, then this game may not be for you, because it's very much steeped into retro games of yesteryear. This is an independent game after all, so they're not going to go for like the top end visuals, but for what they have going, I think it looks really good, and it's smooth and fluid. I played this on Xbox Game Pass PC, and I never experienced any kind of glitches, no crashes, anything like that. I also want to hit on the difficulty of this. This game can be very brutal. When you're going through some of these stages and going through different parts of the map that has a lot of stage hazards or really makes you utilize all your abilities, it's going to be tough to get through those. So you're going to die repeatedly. You're going to die a few times and then start back at your last save point. So that can be kind of brutal. It can be a harsh feeling knowing that you went and spent maybe 10 minutes getting through this huge large part, taking your time, trying to utilize all your abilities, only to be sent back to a save point that's really far off and you have to do it again. Sometimes I stopped for the night and then started back up the next day in order to get through that area, just because I felt like, I've been playing a whole hour. Everything was going pretty smoothly, and then I got to this really big part that was like hitting my head against, and I'm like, you know what, I gotta step back. So if you don't like that, if you don't like that trial and error process, then perhaps give this game a pass, or at least, if you still want to play it, but you like these types of games, these interconnected adventures, then definitely when you get to those points, kind of take a step back, take a breather, do something else, and think about how you're going to get through that part of the map, then come back to it and complete it. And the boss fights. The boss fights are pretty darn fun. If I do say so myself, I enjoyed figuring out how to beat them. They really make you learn how to use the game's different mechanics, your stop time. There's also a mechanic that I have not mentioned this entire video, but just know that if you get really close to enemies, then you can replenish your magic points. You can also replenish your health depending upon if the time is stopped or not. So to sum everything up, personally, I think the visuals are definitely a pro. The fast-paced, action-oriented combat is another pro, along with the unique gauges and balancing act between your gauges and your attacks, along with the pausing and stopping time mechanics, are all definitely awesome. The cons in this game would probably be the story. It's very light, but it's not really super in-depth. But luckily for me, I play games more for the gameplay. Also, what can be considered a con is the game is quite brutal at times, to the point where you have to go and restart at a save point that might have been far away. So that means more trial and error and repeat playthroughs that you're kind of just banging your head against the wall. That can be a little bit mind taxing. But other than that, there's not really anything else I need to say about Touhou Luna Nights. It's a pretty solid game overall with brutal difficulty and a light story, but really shines where it's gameplay and unique game mechanics. So if any of those words of that sentence, if anything I've been rambling about today in this video sounds good to you, I would definitely say give this game a try. I mean, it would stand toe-to-toe with some of the Castlevania and Metroid games in the past, some of those interconnected adventure games that you may have played. So should you play Touhou Luna Nights, the verdict is in, and now I want to hear from you. If you played this game, let me know what your personal opinion is about. Share it with me and everyone else in the comments. I would love to hear from like-minded people that enjoy these types of games. This is what gaming's all about, sharing our love of it. Now it's time for me to go on to the next game in order to give my opinion about that one, to help you make your decision making process even easier. And I hope you found some joy, something from this video to help you with your process of what your next game is going to be. So as always, thanks for joining the party, listen to me ramble, and I will see you in the next exciting video.